I know this is a terrible story to tell. You're gonna just go like this. You're gonna have one of those shivers when I tell you this story. But the ending of the story is the bully never came into our yard ever again. There was a bully in our neighborhood, and I was just a little tight, about 4 or 5 years old. But I played when I was little. My mom said I was out there with guys that were 12 and 13 years old playing football, going head on with them. I remember one time tackling this big guy that was playing quarterback, and he had to be almost like a full-grown man, and I ran 100%, put my head right in his chest and dropped him, but everything in my body said, oh my gosh, that was amazing, right? But it hurt. I remember that. So my dad brings home a brand new Bonneville Pontiac. Beautiful maroon interior, beautiful, very beautiful blue exterior. Got out of the car, got the tag on it, walks into the house to get my mother and bring her out to see his new vehicle. And in that time, there were 5 of us there, and there was the bully there, and he challenged me to take stones and go up one side and down the other and see, I told you you're going to shiver. And I'm in the middle of literally going down this car with stones and put these deep indentations into the car as about a 4 or 5-year-old boy. And my dad walks out with my mom and sees this. Now, he was a high school disciplinarian, in other words, a principal, and his paddle was extra long, and he went to the wood shop and put holes in it so he could get a little bit more crack on it. His forearms were as big as my thighs. I got my mom's structure, her bones. He grabbed me and picked me up just like this. And my mom said he whacked me and my body flailed in the wind and then came back down, and he whacked me again and flailed in the wind and came back down, and she ran out there and grabbed me and said, "No, Bill." And he turned to that bully and said, "Get out of my yard and never come back, or I come to your dad's house." He never came back. And his dad didn't want to see my dad either. We got to know who we come from, our pedigree. I mean, I almost threw up before every football game. Butterflies that were bigger than dinosaurs. Just to get under the center, hut 1, hut 2, and drop back with the idea that all these guys wanted to bury me in the ground. There you go. And I did my best. But when I went to college my second year, and I was starting on the varsity team, and my grandparents and parents came out that weekend that I actually was starting, because there was an All-American in front of me, but he got hurt, and now I'm second string, I'm starting. It's a big deal. And we went to breakfast and had our pancakes, because back then the whole thing was not protein, it was carbs. Load up on carbs and be asleep before the game starts. Well, that's about what it was in those days. Now, I was young for my grade. So when I went to college, I was 17, playing against 21 and 22-year-olds. So now I'm 18. Can't grow a beard, haven't even started shaving, and I'm looking across the field from full men ready to bury me, So there were some nerves there. But I'm ready for it, praise the Lord. And I turned as I was saying goodbye to my family, which almost sounded a little bit like, and had a feeling like there were angelic horns around me with the sound of mourning, like this was the last time I would see them. As I'm saying goodbye to them and shaking hands and giving them hugs, and I turned around, and my grandfather, who's about 5'9", grabbed a hold of this part of my arm right here and put his fingers right in it. And I went, oh, and he brought me down right eye to eye. And he was an old, tough blue-collar worker. In the days where they worked in the factories, he got so good at when that big old factory belt came off, he'd flip that thing back on while it was still running. And one day he did, and his shirt got caught in it. It took his arm right in. They said, Dad reached down and grabbed his arm and said, I better go to the hospital, and carried his own arm to the hospital. So all his life he had one of those, what do they call it? Prosthetic limbs there, you know, that had a little, that back in that day, it had those little things he could work like this, or he'd put an actual hand on that. And he was always walking to me up in church and going with that thing going like this. And he'd bonk you, you know. And so I remember I'd get him back because we were building a house together, and we're all up on the roof taking and putting nails in those, in that sheetrock, you know, not in sheetrock, but in the plywood, big pieces, and we're putting nails all up on this pretty good sized slope, and all my dad, my grandfather and I are up there. And my grandfather, you know, because he didn't have that arm that worked, he'd take a nail and he'd put it in his hand, and he'd put the hammer on the head of the nail with the nail sticking out like this, and he'd go poof, like that, and he'd put that nail in, I mean a good at least third of the way just by hitting it like that. Then he'd take like this, you have to do this and grab, because he didn't have his hands, grab the hammer, and he was so good it was like one and poof, and it was in. Well, I'd wait till he'd go poof, like this, and while he's getting it, I'd hit the board and the nail go pa-ding, and he'd be ready to, and then the nail wasn't there. Because he'd be hitting me in the head and stuff, so I got him back. You know, we had this fun relationship. So he's one of those real, so that arm that he got me with is a really strong arm. Reached me, brought me down like this, and when I looked him eye to eye, he said, son, I don't want you to be afraid today. He said, you know why? And I'm thinking, I'd really like to know why. He said, this is what he said, you're a Hockaday, and Hockadays are tough. And I thought to myself, for crying out loud, why did you wait until now to tell me that? That could have really helped me. Because when he said that, it's like he blew air into my lungs, and I straightened right up and I started walking like I actually, you know? Yes. And I remember being in that day, getting every single, and I'm telling you what, every time I got the ball, I was fearless. Sure, I got tackled, but it didn't hurt because there was something put into me. We got to know who we are. The devil doesn't want you to know. He's afraid of you.